Mem Dalet Amud Beis, 5 lines from the top. I continue the analysis of the Bryce by the din of being a prisha from the area, separation from the area of being ulam mizbeach. Kach porshim b'shas matan par kaina mashiach par helam dover shel tzibur usiri avidus gerchovim. So too, there's a din of prisha not only by the burning of the ketzeres, but when there is the hazal sadam of the korban of the parakaina Mashiach or Helam Dovar or Siri Veis Chavim, where there's a Hazal Saddam in the Heichal. Similarly, there's a dinner prisha bein Ulam HaMizbeach. There's also a dinner prisha in the area between the Ulam, the entrance of the Ulam, and the Mizbeach HaChitzon. In fact, how do we know this? How do we know that Bichlal there is an Isur to be in the Heichal when there's this Hazal Saddam? We know by the Yom Kippur, the Avodah of Yom Kippur, the Ketayros, the burning of the Ketayros on Yom Kippur, we know that the Pasuk says Beferish, that no one is allowed to be there. And Mamela, the Rabbanan extended that Isser to the area, Mebein Ulam Mizbeach, that is also Midrabanan. But how Bichlal do we know that there's an Isser to be in the Heichal when there's a Hazal, Samat Domim in these cases, and therefore to extend it Midrabanan to the area Bein Ulam Mizbeach? Amar Rabbi Padaz, Asya Kaparva Kapara Miyam Kippur. We have Gezer Shava Kaparva Kapara Miyam Kippur. On Yom Kippur, it says Kippur. It says Bevoil Chaper B'Kodesh v'Kippur, v'Kippur B'Adai. It's a lashon of Kippur, and it says by the Par Hamdar Shel Tzipur v'Kippur Aleim Akayim v'Nislachem. And it says in the case of the Sira v'Kippur Akayim I'll call Adas B'nei Yisrael. So therefore, we learn out Ki Kapora Kapora v'Gzera Shava, that it applies, this halacha prisha applies by these cases of the matan damim as well. Now, however, we don't find this in the case of the parakaina Mashiach. So why therefore do we apply it to the case of parakaina Mashiach? The Lechem Mishnah explaining the Rambam says that this is not mamish, literally a gzera shava. It's more in the context of a binyanav, and therefore, once we see that it applies to the matan domim of the sirim and nisrofim, the other korbanos where there's a matan domim in the heichal, it applies similarly to the case of the kaina Mashiach. It applies similarly to that case as well, because even though there's no mention of a kapora, but it is a binyanav, we apply it and extend it to that case as well. We see from here that the different levels of kedusha in the different areas of the Beis Hamikdash is midaraisa. It's halacha l'moshe misinai v'hachi gemirlu, and that's how we're taught halacha l'moshe misinai, that there's a different milas, there's a different levels of kedusha in the various areas of the Beis Hamikdash. These are good the Rabbanan, because if you say that it's only midrabanan, and therefore all the areas of the Azora have the same level of kedusha, if that's the case, why would you say that there's a dinner prisha in the area between the Beit Ulam Mizbeach? Meaning you say that it's only because the person might come into the Heichal. That's why it has to be vacated. That's why no one could be there. It's because Dilma Mikrava Aile, Samikul Azora Nami Nefeshu. Why don't you say there's a dinner prisha from the entire Azora? Dilma Mikrava Aile. Maybe he'll come in, and from wherever he is in the Azara, maybe we'll come in and enter into the Heichal. So if we're geyser, and if it's only the Rabbanan, we're geyser, why should we differentiate between these areas? Therefore, we must say that no, there's midaraisa, a different level of kedusha between the area Bein Ulam Mizbeach and between the rest of the Azara. Gemara says no, that's not necessarily the case. You don't have a right to that. Because you can say that it's really one level of Kedusha, but there is a reason to differentiate between the two areas, and there is a reason to say that we're only geyser Bein Ulam Mizbeach and not for the rest of the Zara. Because Bein Ulam Mizbeach came in the Loy Mafsek Midi. Since there's no obstruction, the area between the Ulam and Mizbeach, there's nothing between the Mizbeach and going west towards the entrance of the Ulam, there's nothing there, there's nothing obstructing it there. So therefore, since it came to the Laimitska Midi, Laimitska Milsa, there's no hacker, there's nothing to person to give a hacker to remind him, and therefore to remind him not to enter, and he might therefore go and enter into the ulam and into the heichal. But the rest of the Azora, the area that's east of the Mizbeach, the area that's past the Mizbeach, between the area east of the Mizbeach and the ulam, the heichal, it's blocked. Between that is the Mizbeach. So once a person comes closer, he sees that the Mizbeach HaChitzon is there. It will remind him to know, here's the Mizbeach, and he can't go further. And therefore, he'll be reminded not to go further, so there's no reason to be geyser. But west of the Mizbeach, between the Mizbeach and the Pesach of the Ulam, there is no obstruction, and therefore they were geyser. We can see from here that the Kedusha, the level of Kedusha of the area of the Heichal and the Ulam, it's the same level of Kedusha. There's no difference between them. Why do we say that? Because because if you say that there are different levels of Kedusha, there are two different levels of Kedusha, Ulam Gufa Gzeira. The Ulam, therefore you'd say, the Ulam itself, meaning if it's a different level of Kedusha, therefore in the Ulam itself is not included in the Isser of not coming into the Heichal. It's not part of the Heichal. It doesn't have the Kedusha of the Heichal. So the Ulam itself, being in the Ulam itself, when there is an Avodah in the Heichal, it itself would be a Gzera. So Ulam Gufa Gzera. So V'nekim V'nigzer Gzera L'Gzera. Why should we therefore be Geyser on the area between the Ulam and the Mizbeach if the Ulam itself is a Gzera? Why should we be Geyser? Elamai, you must say that the Ulam and the Heichal is one level of Kedusha, and therefore, just like you can't be in the Heichel, you can't be in the Ulam. And the Gzeira is on Bein Ulam and Mizbeach. More answers no. It's not a Raya. Loi Ulam ubein ha'ulam Mizbeach hara Kedusha. The area of the Ulam and Bein Ulam Mizbeach is one Kedusha. The Heichal v'Ulam shtei Kedushas. No, I'll tell you that the Heichal and the Ulam are two separate Kedushas. It's not the same Kedusha. And the Heichal is a Gzeira. But the Bein Ulam and Bein Ulam Mizbeach, it's not a Gzeira because the Bein Ulam Mizbeach and the Ulam, that is considered one level of Kedusha, and that's considered as one. So it's all part of the same Gzeira. Continue on analyzing the Mishnah. Every day when the Kohen would scoop up the coals to burn the keteris, he would do it with a shovel of silver and then pour into the shovel made out of gold. My time, what's the reason for two shovels? Our answer is the Torah was concerned about the loss of money for Yisrael. Therefore, using a shovel made out of gold to scoop up the coals, the shovel will get ruined, and the gold is very valuable. Rather use a shovel made out of silver, where the loss is far less significant. Therefore, they had the shovel that was scooped it up with silver, and then it was poured into the golden shovel. But today on Yom Kippur, there was only one shovel. He would scoop it up with the golden shovel and bring it in with that shovel. My time, why is it different than Yom Kippur? The more answers, Mishum Chulsha, the Kohen Gadol, because we're concerned about weakening the Kohen Gadol and extra effort to do it into one shovel, then pouring it into a second shovel. We make it easier for him, and therefore we say one shovel is, you only use one shovel. Every day that the Kohen, he used to scoop up the coals with a shovel of 4 kavan and pour it into another shovel which was only 3 kavan. But Rav Yossi said that every day the Kohen scoops it up the coal with a shovel of saw, which is 6 kavan, and pours it into one of 3. We learned in the Mishnah that after pouring it from one shovel to the second shovel, a kav of coals would spill out, and he swept it into the canal that ran through the Azora. He would sweep up this kav of gecholim into the canal. So you see that, like was mentioned, that there was from 4 kavan, it was poured into a shovel of 3 kavan, so that there was a difference of 1 kav, and that 1 kav is spilled onto the Azora, which was swept into the canal. The Rav explains it was make a point to say that it was swept into the canal. It should not be left lying around. The Kohanim went barefoot, and it would be a hezek for them it could cause them to be burnt, so it makes a point of saying that they would sweep it into the canal. Tana Chalikav, as one Brisa said that one cob of coal spilled out of a Tanyira Kabayim, the other one says two. Bishlamach the Tanikav Rabbanan. We understand the Brisa that says one cob, that's going according to the Shita Rabbanan, that says the first shovel is 4, the second shovel is 3, the difference is 1. Elahach the Tanikabayim. But the one that says 2 kabim money, who's a mandomer, loy rabbanan, it's not the rabbanan because they hold it's only 1. And the loy Rabbi Yossi, and it's not Rabbi Yossi either because he says that the first shovel was a saw, which was 6 kabim, poured into a shovel of 3. There was a difference of 3. Rav Chisda, he said, who's the Tanit, Rabbi Shmuel ben Aishel, Rabbi Yechon ben Breiki. He's the Tanit, Tanya Rabbi Shmuel ben Aishel, Rabbi Yechon ben Breiki, Aimer, Mishal Kabayim HaMachnes. He held that the first shovel was 4, but the second shovel was only 2. So therefore, there was, this Tana holds that it was 2, that it goes according to him. So the Tana says that 2 kabim were scattered, were spilled out, was going according to the Shita. Rav Ashi Amar, he says a different opinion. I feel tame Rabbi Yossi. You could say it's Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi, according to Rabbi Yossi, there would be 3 that were spilled out, and here says 2. Rabbi Yossi says the first shovel was a saw of midboris. Now, when later on they increased the size of the measurements, and they increased it by a shtos. So therefore, there was what was previously 6 kabim, when in the measurements of Yerushalayim, which were bigger, those 6 kabim only now comprised 5 kabim of the new measurement. Therefore, he says he scooped it up with a shovel that could contain a saw midboris, which is 6 saw in midboris, but it's only 5 saw in Yerushalmius. Umar l'soyach shloishes kabim Yerushalmius, and he poured it into a shovel that contained, that the volume of it was 3 kabim Yerushalmius, so the difference was kabayim Yerushalmius, and that's what it means. 2 kabim spilled out, 2 kabim Yerushalmius. The Mishnah continues, says, B'chol yom ha'isa kveda v'yom kala. And every day the shovel was heavy, but today was light. Tana, B'chol yom ha'isa gilda ava. Every day the everyday shovel that was used, the metal that was made, the sides of it were thick metal. V'hayim rach. But today, on Yom Kippur, mishum chulsa d'kain gadol, it was thin metal, so therefore the shovel was not so heavy. B'chol yom ha'yiksara v'yom ha'rucha. Every day the everyday handle, the handle of the shovel was short, but on Yom Kippur it was long. My time, why didn't Yom Kippur have a long handle? So that he could support it with his arm. So he had a long handle that his arm could support it up, because it was very difficult for him to bring in the shovel of coals and also with the keteras and to burn it. Therefore, it would lighten the load by able to support it with his arm. That's why it had a long handle. Tana b'chol yom lo hayla ni'ashtik. Every day it did not have a ni'ashtik, which according to Rashi means a ring, that it did not have a ring at the end of it, that the shovel did not have a ring attached to the handle. That's the way Rashi learns. There's many shitas in the Rishonim. Other shitas are that it didn't have a lid, but Rashi shita is that it is a ring. But today it did. Divrei ben Askan. That's what Divrei ben Askan. That's what he says. What's the reason for this ring, which follows Rashi's shita? Then the Rizmo explains that it says v'nishma kol b'voyla kodesh, that when the kohen comes into the kodesh, it says that the voice was heard. How was the voice heard? This refers to the me'il. It had on the me'il, it had the bells that were attached to the hem of the me'il. So therefore, when he came into the Kodesh, Nishma Koilam. This was instead of that. Now, on Yom Kippur, he didn't come in with the meal. He only had the Big Day Lovan. So he didn't have the meal. He didn't have the bells. This was in place of that bell that he had, this niashtik, which was the bell that made the sound when he came into the Kodesh.